So you want to identify the right body, but you keep failing or you can't consistently figure out the right one in the Mortuary Assistant. Me too. I listened to all the tapes. I read online. There's not a lot of YouTube videos on it or resources. Basically, you need to figure it out on your own. As of right now, read through some forums, read through some comments, watch other people play, and play yourself. But I want to consolidate some information. I feel like there's a lot more need for transparency in this. So, right from their own wiki, let's pull this up. Signs of possession include brief twitching / spasms of the hands, feet, or head. That's number one. Number two, a demonic sigil carved into the wrist. I believe it also will go into the forehead, but their wiki says the wrist. It might not be up to date. Number three, slash marks on the back shoulder area in the shape of an inverted cross. Or four, a massive wound spanning the entirety of the back, exposing the spine. I've had that happen once. It's pretty rare. And that's kind of all you get, those four things. So after playing a bit and reading in on some forum posts, there is some things that are pretty helpful that should be more easily available to find. So one huge one is if the cold storage doors are slamming. If you hear that slam, run to the cold storage room, but do not run into the cold storage room. So run up to the threshold of the door and peek in, and you'll see these, either all doors are slamming, and that's not that helpful, or some of the doors will be slamming. And by some, I mean one. If it's that one door slamming, you can almost guarantee that that's the body. So if you hear that, that should, hallelujah. Go run down the hall, peek, see what door it is. That's almost always the body. I've never had it not be the possessed body, ever. And on that same track, that's a pretty reliable cue. Another cue is if you see like an apparition of a body, the person that apparition is almost always the body. So, for example, if you're working on like a guy and then you see like a girl T-posing in the back of a hallway or something like that, you can start narrowing it down and say, okay, it's probably a girl. Do I have one or two? If I have one lady, you can almost guarantee that that's the possessed body. This is also more reliable if it's not the body you're currently working on. So if you're working on a guy and that same guy is standing over himself or something like that, that might be something to lead you astray. So a huge cue is if it's someone else than what you're currently working on. Also, after you process bodies and you push them back into cold storage, you shut the door on cold storage, right? You lock them in their little nappy place. If they come back out, that's a super, super reliable cue that that's the body. And for a long time, I thought, man, I must have forgot to shut that. Kind of like a Skyrim, guard. But if they're pulled out, you can pretty reliably guarantee that that's the person. Another huge cue is if, like said in the official wiki, if you are inspecting the body and you look at the back and you can see their spine through a huge wound, It's rare, but that's pretty much a dead giveaway of that's the correct body. So if you do see that during inspection, you might as well just start running around with letting strips and trying to find the name. Another huge cue is if you hear bone cracking when you're inspecting a body. So if you hear like the sound of bones breaking, or like a neck cracking type of sound, that's a pretty good cue that you're working with the right body, the possessed body. This one is very subtle, but it's almost a complete guarantee that you're working with the possessed body. So when you're applying the moisturizing pad on a body, if they're smirking, so if they go from their standard face to a slight smirk in the sides of the mouth, on every body, that's the possessed body. Depending on what person you're working on, it might be like incredibly subtle. Especially the older people, the smile seems to be a little less pronounced. And if you have like a special body, like the clown or Santa, like they're always jolly. So the smile is going to be really subtle. But if you do notice that they're smiling and you're like, that's not their normal face, they're smiling, you can almost guarantee that that's the body. This cue is visible the entire embalming process, but usually you have a clearer shot of the head, and it's easier to see the smile if when you're doing the moisturizing pad, just because of the camera angle. You can also, like, once you're inspecting the body for wounds, you can see a slight smirk there too, but you need to be careful because, as said before, there are certain faces where their resting face is just a little happy. So that's something you don't want to, like, pull a body out and push it and be like, this guy's smiling, and then burn it immediately. Like, you want to make sure that that's not just their resting face. So another thing you can do in that same regard is if you're pushing them out of cold storage and you see that they're like really happy, note that and then continue the embalm, and then look back, and if they're less happy, that was a smile. But I think I said this before, it's easier to manage after the mouth is wired shut, and once you're doing the moisturizing pad. Another cue for making sure you're working with the right body is twitches. So a lot of the time the body will be laying down and their right or left shoulder will twitch. Their feet will twitch. It was said right in the official wiki, brief twitches or spasms of the hand, feet, or head. I'd like to also include shoulders because you will see like shoulder twitches. Sometimes this is hard to see. It is happening, but it's hard to see because you're just frantically running around and grabbing things and you don't really stop and watch. One good place to see this is when you are draining the body, because a lot of the time you have 20-30 seconds to just breathe and watch. But they would be twitching even when you're inspecting or doing any other part of the embalm. Another huge cue is, it's called a demon mark. So it's usually on the wrists, but I believe it can also go on the head. But it's kind of hard to see sometimes because the palms are down once you're wheeling them. So to inspect the wrists, you have to take them out of cold storage and put them in the embalming area to even look at their wrists. So it gets a little sketchy when you're starting to see shit and you're like desperate, like I need to finish this up or else I'm going to lose, right? But it's pretty much 100% guarantee if they have a little mark on their wrist or hands. What did the wiki say? It just says the wrist, so it's a sigil. And sometimes it's really difficult based on the tone of skin that you're working with, and it's like a very, very faint tattoo. So you really need to get up close to your monitor sometimes, and when you're looking at the wrists, and it's going to be very subtle, but depending on who it is, it'll be more obvious than not. Another huge one is if there's an upside down cross exposed on the back when you lift the body up to look at the back. It's kind of like under the armpit a bit and a little to the back, but it's pretty obvious when you're looking. It is a bit more rare, but it is there when you're actually inspecting the back of the body, and that would be pretty much a guarantee that it's the right person. Another really, really good cue is if the game is going on for a while, the demon's house will show up on your pen and paper. So it's never a trick, ever. If you keep tabbing and looking at or sketching on the little notepad, over time it'll turn into the correct sigil of the demon. So if you're getting into the late game, that would be something you want to look at, every couple of minutes, hit tab and write in your notebook and just see if you can get a pretty good idea of the sigil, and then you can narrow it down to, only a couple names. Speaking of the notebook and the sigil in the notebook, there is a guarantee cue of if you take the ash and you put it on the body and you light the one match you get, so that will expose the house of the demon. There is something to note on that. You can't just do it on anyone. You have to be pretty sure. So let's say you narrowed it down to two bodies, exactly two. If you know the house, let's just say it's the house of immolation, okay? And you take out a body and you put ash on it, and then you light the match and it shows desolation, you know that that's not the right body. So you want to, if you narrow it down to two, you can almost guarantee that you'll get it if you use the ash trick. Given all that, there is a bunch of cues that the demon will throw at you to trick you to think that it's one of those cues. Like if the body starts speaking or moaning, if you put the mark on it and it's like talking to you, saying like, ha ha ha, are you sure? That's not a guarantee of anything. They're just like slight things that can help direct you to the right body. So this is like giving you like a 55% shot. It's not really something to take in a huge consideration. Kind of like mentioned earlier, if you're working on a body and that body, like an apparition of the same body, shows around it or over it, you might say, oh, that's the right body. That would be kind of throwing you off, right? Like I said before, if you're working on a body and a different apparition pops up, that's a lot more better of a sign. The other thing that threw me off when I was playing was sometimes the body will have a bunch of cuts on its chest or kind of like on the gut area and it kind of looks like upside down hearts. So having, a vague grasp of the game, I was like, there's the cross, this is it. And then I burned it and I lost. So these are things that you don't want to get led astray. So I don't even want to like explain all the very vaguely reliable ones, because those can easily get you off track. So stick with what we talked about before. And if you see anything that doesn't follow those, as of the recording of this, you're going to get thrown off track. So stick with what we talked about. So after reviewing my footage that I've had so far, I want to kind of touch on one point, and then I'm going to show an easy example or two, and then a hard example or two. So, and I'm going to cut the footage so you're not just seeing me run, like only the important parts will be shown and my opinions of them. So so say the door is slamming in the cold storage, and you just say, oh, there we go, door slamming, we're done. You'll probably get it right if you're a betting man, but there's times where it'll show that cue and that's not the right body. And that is, you're getting thrown false information that looks good by the demon. So what you want to do is consider every cue of the listed here and even more. Every time they do something, mark that down as that's another point for this, another point for this, another point for this. So at some point there will be, you'll have enough evidence to say this is the right one. So consider each cue that you see another data point towards having one or two bodies so you can start narrowing it down. If you, like I said right at the beginning, if you just take one or two data points and then you try to rush through the game, you'll probably get it right. But if you want to be certain and you never want to lose, then you need to be so careful and go through, have so much evidence that that's the body that there's no question, right? So get a lot of data points. So right here, I just finished processing this guy, walking him back to cold storage, and as I turn, I catch a glimpse that, hey, that other cold storage slot was open. So right off the bat, that's a huge cue. So I'm going to start reviewing this body and do some verification, because that's only one data point. So right away I'm going to go put the ashes on her, and then I see that there was the house of immolation. Now I'm running back. I'm going to check on the house. So right here, here's all the names. I'm going to go verify what I have. So I only had 3 of the letters. So it matched that name there.
Are you sure this is the one?
Grab the mark, put it on, and here we go. And fast forward it on here, a big bright light. And
Come a long way. It's nice not to be the one down there for a change.
since I said Mr. Delver, it's normally when you call him Raymond, that's the bad ending, but this is
Do you
This is the good
always
ending.
just pass out and wake up on the floor?
Here's another example of a simple one that probably needed a little more verification, but I had enough information that I felt comfortable calling it. So I'm working on this guy and I hear this cold storage going off. I open it up so I don't forget which person it is. And I change him out. Right now I'm going to do the ash trick, just make sure that the name matches the house. Right, the name I have so far matches the house. So I take a hard fall here. Hold that clipboard up to balance myself. I'm trying to get the final bit of the name here, so I'm running around, but no such luck. And I'll open up the names and I click on the house from the body.
The door is open.
So because we know the house, or we're assuming we know the house, I only have 3 of parts of the name out of 4. But in that house, there was only one name with those 3 different parts in it, so I can assume the 4th part. So I'm going to check the risk for the demon mark, and I see it right there. Just checking my sanity. Check both wrists, why not? Shit your pants real quick. Felt comfortable calling it, and
Are you sure this is the right one?
mostly sure. But at this point, it's still a little bit risky, but I felt confident saying that this was the right one, and in it.
Mr. Dover?
I think you can just call me Raymond at this point.
So here's an example of a really difficult one that I got completely sideswiped by. I ended up getting it right, but I had never seen this up until this clip. Going along as normal, right? Mixing chems, and then out of nowhere, bang, 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 right? Okay, it's the middle door. It's the big lady. So I know that I'm gonna finish up working on this body and then do some thorough analysis on the big lady. So I switch the lady out and I start working on her. And I'm working normally, trying to prove that this is the right one. And I hear another bang of a different door. And I'm confused at this point, right? So I was given a very good cue, and then I got another very good cue on another person. But this has helped me narrow it down to like 2 people. Right here, I noticed that she's smiling, so that's another point for the bigger lady. So now I'm gonna go test the other person and see what I can find with them. But then I get another curveball, and the apparition of a person was neither of the women. I also noted right here that she wasn't smiling,
All right.
so that there wasn't a cue there. So this was the final bit of the name I needed, so I got all 4 parts of the name right now. Right here, I'm doing the ash trick to validate the house, and then because I have all the bits of the name, I'm able to see if that house matches the name right here. And it matches the one on the right here. So we have the house matching, and I'm having a demon mark on the wrist here. So that's kind of enough for me to feel comfortable saying that this is the one.
It's nice not to be the one down there for a change.
Mr. Dover?
So I'm going to work through this example really quickly because I made a really dumb mistake right at the end, but I demonstrate kind of good critical thinking here that would be good for you to look at. So I'm just working through
That's not it.
first person and I start hearing clanging, I know which cold storage bay it is, and I keep on working. I switch over from the person I was working on to the one that's suspect right now. Work on them normally.
There we go.
Slight scare. Finish them up.
All right.
Nothing too crazy. Put them away. Work on the next person. Man at the end of the hallway. Kind of looks like our guy, right? Right now I have 3 parts of the name. And finding the 4th part right here as I switch back to the suspect guy. I grab some ash so that we can do the ash test. And I bring him back to inspect. Put the 4th piece of the name and accidentally grab another piece of paper I didn't need. Grandma's here. And off we go. Pretty far along. I see a demon mark on the right wrist. Found the house sigil. And I line that up and I find a matching name here. I believe it's that second one. Yep. So I'm just setting the pieces in order. Making sure, and then I take the mark. And I even find an upside down cross. So I wait here. And I see that even this sticky note shows the same house. And I'm just so excited that I hit the button and I do not put the mark on the body.
Morning. Not to be the one down there for a change.
Raymond?
I suppose a first name basis is in order.
I think I'm fine.
Are you sure? You seem out of it.
Oh, I've just been waiting for so long.
What? What are you... Oh no. You didn't use the mark. Rebecca.
Rebecca's not here, you fucking idiot!
Yeah, so although that was pretty cut and dry, there was a lot of different moving pieces and a lot of information you kind of had and knew that was important. And I thought it was nice to show that because I didn't watch the ending after I heard her say Raymond. So I was baffled until I rewatched the footage and saw that I didn't use the mark. So that's just what I wanted to show you, is that like you can do pretty much everything right, and one little mistake makes you lose the game. So make sure you write down the right parts of the name. Make sure that you put the mark on. Even if you know all the advanced stuff, it's the basics that will get you totally to lose.